When Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, a deep energetic shift begins for the collective. It is essential to note that these interpretations are based on Sidereal or Vedic Astrology, which accounts for the approximately 24-degree difference with the tropical zodiac. For months, Saturn had been retrograding, slowing our pace, forcing introspection, and compelling us to revisit responsibilities, unfinished karmic lessons, and internal fears. On November 28th, that period of internal correction concludes, and Saturn's direct motion invites us to move forward, not impulsively, but with awareness, maturity, and a renewed commitment to discipline and responsibility. Saturn in Pisces brings a unique combination of energies. Pisces is symbolic of the subconscious, spirituality, imagination, dissolution of ego, collective emotional currents, and the invisible realms, everything beyond material logic. Saturn represents structure, boundaries, discipline, time, karma, and accountability. When Saturn visits Pisces, it forces us to face illusions and dissolve emotional and spiritual weaknesses. It is the archetype of grounding dreams in reality, transforming spiritual ideals into practical discipline, and learning that faith without commitment becomes fantasy. Spirituality deepens, but it becomes rooted in responsibility, routine, and true inner courage, not escapism or emotional romanticism. During the retrograde phase, many individuals experienced emotional heaviness, karmic resurfacing, exhaustion, or a withdrawal from external life. Hidden fears, unresolved grief, and old emotional patterns resurfaced. Some struggled with confusion or disillusionment as illusions fractured and the truth demanded acknowledgement. Saturn in Pisces does not let us float in idealism. It teaches us to swim through the depths of our own inner ocean with grounded awareness. Saturn turning direct marks the moment when clarity begins to return and lessons start applying in real time. This direct motion also activates Saturn's role as a karmic gatekeeper. The past months tested our resilience, sincerity, and inner integrity. Now, Saturn begins distributing the results. Progress becomes possible where effort was consistent, while stagnation continues where avoidance or denial persists. The energetic tone shifts from internal processing to external manifestation. Slow but steady forward movement returns. The goals we shape during this period will influence our trajectory for years ahead, especially as Saturn prepares for its monumental entry into its debilitation sign Aries in 2027. Which will mark the beginning of a new 30-year karmic cycle. Saturn's direct motion in Pisces also interacts with Jupiter's journey during this timeline. Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, is exalted in Cancer when Saturn turns direct, although retrograde, amplifying emotional purification, ancestral healing, and inner growth. Jupiter then moves into Gemini in December 2025, bringing intellectual expansion, learning, networking, and curiosity. When Jupiter turns direct in March 2026, it clears mental fog and supports progressive clarity. Finally, when Jupiter re-enters Cancer in June 2026 and casts its auspicious ninth aspect upon Saturn, the universe grants a window of grace, a reminder that discipline and devotion, when paired with faith, create lasting transformation. Saturn and Jupiter working together create a powerful spiritual-material balance, helping us align inner truth with practical steps. Saturn in Pisces also has collective spiritual undertones. It can shift global consciousness toward deeper awareness, forcing humanity to face the illusions of escapism, spiritual bypassing, emotional dependency, and false idealism. It calls for responsibility toward emotional and psychological health, ethical spiritual leadership, and integrity in our inner life. Creative industries, mystical sciences, psychology, healing arts, and contemplative practices may undergo structural evolution. People may feel pulled toward meditation, solitude, self-reflection, and deeper inquiry into the nature of life. At the same time, the collective may witness reality checks in areas where fantasy or denial had taken root. As Saturn resumes forward motion, practical efforts matter. This is not a period to rush direction. Instead, it is a time to move slowly but consistently. Dreams without discipline dissolve. Illusions break so that truth may rise. Commitment replaces confusion, effort replaces waiting, and surrender becomes conscious rather than forced. Progress will appear subtle at first, like roots growing underground, but those who obey Saturn's tempo, patience, perseverance, humility, and consistency will witness meaningful developments. Another key theme of this period is karmic closure. Pisces represents the final chapter before new beginnings. Saturn direct helps conclude old karmic debts, emotional, financial, spiritual, and relational. The universe asks us to clear what burdens us so we can enter the next chapter lighter and wiser. The more consciously we release outdated attachments, beliefs, and emotional patterns, the smoother our emergence will be when Saturn later enters Aries and initiates fresh cycles of growth. Overall, Saturn direct in Pisces teaches a profound lesson. True spiritual growth demands accountability. Healing is not passive. Awakening is not an escape from life. As Saturn turns direct, you re-enter the world not as who you were, but as who you are becoming, shaped by quiet battles, matured through surrender, and ready to walk forward with clarity, commitment, and inner strength. Saturn represents your greatest challenges, fears, transformations, hard work, and focus. Wherever it transits, it inevitably brings changes and challenges tied to the matters of that house or sign. It creates circumstances that demand your attention, effort, and dedication to those areas. Ignoring or neglecting Saturn's influence is not an option. It requires accountability and persistence. To accurately assess the impact of these transits, it is crucial to consider your ascendant and moon signs. The ascendant sign offers insights into the timing of life events, while the moon sign reveals how you will emotionally respond to these changes. Take into account the position of your current Maha-Dasha Lord in your birth chart, as it can shed light on how these transits will influence the recurring themes of your current Dasha period. This transit may manifest differently for each individual, and how they navigate this transit will depend on their personal charts. A more precise understanding of the impact of this transit can be gained by examining Saturn's Ashtaka Varga score in Pisces. Keep in mind that the effects of this transit are contingent on Saturn's interaction with the planets in individual birth charts. It's also worth noting that individuals currently experiencing the influence of Saturn's Dasha periods may feel the effects of this transit more intensely. To understand how this transit may affect you based on your zodiac sign and the houses it transits, let's delve into those specifics. For Aries, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Aries individuals enter a defining stretch of inner work becoming outer reality. For months, Saturn's retrograde in your 12th house has been pulling you inward, quietly dissolving illusions around career, money, purpose, and the people you thought you needed. Now, with Saturn moving forward again, life stops drifting and demands deliberate choices. Whatever you reviewed, questioned, or emotionally outgrew since July now enters a phase of responsibility, structure, and execution. This is where quiet realizations turn into mature decisions. Saturn rules your 10th house of career and karmic duties and your 11th house of earnings, networks, ambitions, and recognition. With it moving forward in your 12th house, you are completing a karmic cycle that began years ago. This is a symbolic clearing phase, wrapping up commitments, completing tasks that lingered too long, letting go of roles and connections that no longer belong to your future, and learning to live with intention instead of restlessness. Saturn is asking you to mature, not through struggle alone, but through clarity, humility, and conscious sacrifice. The 12th house isn't about defeat, it's about detaching from what drains you so you can rise without dead weight. Career and purpose take a subtle but serious tone. You may be working more behind the scenes, planning, training, or restructuring something important. The world may not see your effort right away, and that's okay. Saturn here teaches that not all progress is visible. You might step away temporarily from the spotlight, take a sabbatical-like approach, or work on a long-term vision without immediate validation. Some Aries may feel a pull toward foreign lands, spiritual institutions, healing professions, research, charitable work, or remote roles. Others may simply feel the need to step back from noisy environments and rebuild inner strength. Saturn wants you to create a sustainable life direction instead of chasing adrenaline and urgency. If something in your professional life hasn't been sitting right, this direct motion gives you the courage to gently close the chapter and start writing a better one. Financially, this transit emphasizes discipline. Saturn's rulership of your 11th house means income patterns undergo restructuring. Dry spells or delays are not punishments, they're signals to refine your approach. You learn to prioritize security over impulse, build savings, plan investments patiently, and think long-term. This is a wonderful time to improve financial habits, repay debts, or streamline expenses. If money has felt like sand slipping through your fingers, Saturn helps you change that, not through fear, but through wisdom and maturity. Charity and spiritual spending may rise too, not for show, but from a deeper place. Sometimes the 12th house brings expenses that feel unavoidable, but Saturn ensures they serve growth, not loss. Emotionally and spiritually, this is a profound turning point. Aries energy likes movement, clarity, and challenge. Saturn in the 12th asks you to sit still, breathe, feel, and listen. You are learning the discipline of silence, the strength that comes from emotional self-awareness rather than constant action. Old fears, past hurts, and hidden anxieties may have resurfaced lately. Now you are ready to process them instead of running from them. Therapies, meditation practices, solitude, retreats, or time in nature become healing tools, not escapes. Saturn teaches you to create inner alignment so your outer world can eventually match it. Sleep becomes important. Your subconscious is active, showing you what to release and what to trust. Saturn's aspects further guide the process. Saturn's third aspect falls on Taurus, your second house, telling you to put extra effort into finances, values, speech, and family responsibilities. You may need to work harder to stabilize earnings or repair stability related to family or self-worth. Saturn's seventh aspect falls on Virgo, your sixth house, highlighting patience and discipline in work routines, health, and daily responsibilities. If you've been neglecting your physical body or resisting structure, Saturn now insists on balance. Routine, exercise, rest, healthy food, and consistency are essential. And Saturn's 10th aspect lands on Sagittarius, your 9th house, strengthening the duty toward higher learning, belief systems, mentors, and life purpose. Faith becomes practical, not theoretical. What you believe must reflect how you live. Your worldview matures, less rebellion, more wisdom. Between April 2nd and May 11th, 2026, Mars, your ruling planet, conjuncts Saturn in Pisces. This is a powerful but pressurized window. Mars wants to push, Saturn wants to pace. You will feel the tension between urgency and patience. If you rush, you'll hit resistance. If you act with discipline and calm, you can conquer mountains. It's a test of emotional mastery more than physical effort. This period can bring breakthroughs in healing, creative discipline, or spiritual strength. Breathe through it. Choose strategy over speed. Jupiter's movement through this period brings meaningful cushioning and divine timing. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde in exalted Cancer, blessing your emotional foundation, home space, and inner life. The universe strengthens your roots as Saturn guides your release. On December 5th, 2025, Jupiter re-enters Gemini, your third house, helping you learn new skills, communicate, build networks, and experiment mentally. When Jupiter turns direct on March 11th, 2026, confidence and curiosity return with clarity. Then on June 2nd, 2026, Jupiter moves back into Cancer, casting its supportive 9th aspect on Saturn again. This brings emotional support, guidance, peace, and inner nourishment just when you need it most. You are not walking this road alone. Grace arrives exactly on time. Across this entire phase, the theme for Aries is quiet power, not loud effort. You are shedding old identities and self-imposed pressures. You are learning that rest is not weakness, solitude is not abandonment, and endings are not failures. You are learning to trust timing rather than force timelines. Saturn in the 12th asks you to mature into your strength that doesn't need applause or urgency to feel real. When you finish this cycle, you will not be the same person. You will be clearer, calmer, financially wiser, spiritually grounded, and ready for the new beginnings that await when Saturn eventually enters your sign. This period asks for patience, humility, silence, and inner courage. It rewards loyalty to yourself, your truth, and your long-term growth. For Taurus, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Taurus individuals step into a phase where their long-term goals, income patterns, and social aspirations mature in a profound and grounded way. Saturn rules your 9th house of higher wisdom, guidance, righteousness, life philosophy, long-distance travel, mentors, and divine protection, and your 10th house of career, status, authority, and responsibility. When the planet of karma, discipline, and realistic growth stations direct in your 11th house, the zone of gains, networks, professional rewards, and long-term ambitions, you begin to see where effort has been sincere and where dreams were built on loose sand. Saturn is now ready to show you the results of seed work you've been doing internally since its retrograde began in mid-2025. What once felt paused or uncertain now requires consistent continuation. Saturn forward in your 11th house is not about sudden leaps. It is about stable growth, meaningful alliances, and long-term success grounded in maturity and patience. For Taurus, this period is about defining what success truly means. Many of you have spent the retrograde phase understanding your real desires, questioning life direction, and evaluating whether your ambitions were truly your own or conditioned by family, society, or ego. Now the universe expects you to act out of clarity rather than comparison or pressure. The 11th house governs long-term dreams and material fulfillment, yet Saturn doesn't reward superficial desire. It supports those who work consistently without chasing validation. You are entering a chapter where you consciously build networks with depth, align with mentors and peers who inspire your growth, and allow old friendships or communities that no longer resonate to quietly dissolve. This isn't loneliness, it's refinement. Real friendships, powerful allies, and meaningful professional circles begin to form now, but they come through authenticity rather than convenience. Career dynamics evolve decisively. The past 2 years may have tested your patience, forcing you to work steadily without immediate recognition. Saturn direct now sets the foundation for solid gains, reputation strengthening, and new opportunities that are earned, not gifted. For many Taurus individuals, this period can bring promotion talks, leadership roles, or recognition for persistent hard work. Others may step into advisory or mentorship positions, become involved in larger organizations, or expand influence digitally or socially. But Saturn demands maturity in how you handle authority. You don't rise by force, you rise by capability. If you have been planning entrepreneurial ventures, community-driven work, educational initiatives, or spiritual business blends, this period provides the discipline and network flow to begin manifesting. Remember, the 11th house is the house of manifestation, and Saturn teaches manifestation through endurance and strategy rather than shortcuts. Financially, this is a major karmic structuring phase. The 11th house rules gains, and Saturn rules your 10th house, meaning money comes through responsibility, consistency, and professional effort, not speculation or shortcuts. Some Taurus individuals may notice that income stabilizes after a period of fluctuation, but stability arrives hand in hand with accountability. You may reevaluate investments, long-term savings, or financial priorities. Saturn pushes you to think beyond immediate profit, toward legacy wealth, sustainable income models, and investments that grow over time. If there were delays or frustrations in gains earlier, Saturn direct now gradually clears the path, provided your plans have substance. Philanthropy, charity, and supporting causes also strengthen karmic flow now. Money given with purity often returns multiplied. Saturn's philosophical side awakens too. As ruler of your 9th house, Saturn turning direct deepens spiritual maturity. Belief systems shift from idealism to lived wisdom. You no longer chase gurus, you choose teachers by how aligned you feel. Travel for work, learning, or spiritual fulfillment becomes meaningful. Life feels guided not by luck, but by conscious alignment. Through this, your long-term life vision becomes grounded and steady. The period ahead supports deep study, academic progress, spiritual discipline, and refining wisdom through experience. Saturn's aspects paint added layers. Saturn's third aspect falls on Taurus itself, your 1st house, demanding personal effort, discipline regarding health, routine, and self-image. This is a time to put in visible effort, to become the version of yourself capable of carrying larger responsibilities. Saturn's 7th aspect to Virgo, your 5th house, reminds you that relationships, creativity, love, and children require patience and realism now. Romantic expectations must mature. Impulsive emotional reactions evolve into emotionally grounded commitment. Creative projects demand regular structure. Children's matters require guidance, not control. Saturn's 10th aspect on Sagittarius, your 8th house, highlights duty around shared resources, joint finances, taxes, and legal responsibilities. Hidden debts, financial or emotional, must be acknowledged and resolved responsibly. A particularly important time unfolds March 2 to 26, 2026, when Venus, your ruling planet, enters Pisces, your 11th house, and becomes exalted, joining Saturn. This is a beautiful yet karmically grounded window of blessings, manifestation, and karmic consolidation. Where Saturn sets the rules and boundaries, exalted Venus softens the path and brings harmony, support, and graceful expansion. Networks bloom, beneficial alliances appear, creativity receives appreciation, and some Taurus individuals may meet meaningful mentors or benefactors. Yet Venus in Saturn's domain also asks you to honor values in friendships, business partnerships, and dreams. Relationships rooted in sincerity grow, superficial ones naturally fade. Jupiter's journey during this phase shapes your emotional and mental growth. As Saturn turns direct, Jupiter retrogrades in exalted Cancer, strengthening your foundation, communication, and emotional clarity. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter re-enters Gemini, sharpening your thinking and encouraging skill development, planning, and flexible communication. When Jupiter turns direct on March 11, 2026, confidence and decision-making increases. And on June 2, 2026, Jupiter returns to Cancer and casts its divine ninth aspect on Saturn, blessing your efforts with grace, emotional support, and spiritual guidance. This rare combination, Saturn's structure supported by Jupiter's compassion, creates a period where disciplined intention meets divine timing. Overall, this chapter demands maturity, long-term thinking, and emotional steadiness. Social circles shift toward quality, professional horizons widen, financial goals become long-term, and your identity shifts toward authority grounded in humility. You are learning to rely not on speed, but on patience, not on external approval, but on internal dignity. The Taurus temperament, steady, loyal, enduring, works in your favor now. Saturn in your 11th house does not deny success. It refines your capacity to hold it. The more sincere your effort, the steadier and deeper the reward becomes. For Gemini, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Gemini individuals enter a pivotal phase in their worldly life, ambitions, and professional identity. Saturn rules your 8th house of transformation, shared resources, sudden events, deep psychology, and hidden truths, and your 9th house of higher learning, blessings, righteousness, mentors, and long-distance journeys. When this karmic planet resumes forward motion in your 10th house, the sector of career, public reputation, authority, and long-term life direction, your external world begins to reflect the internal shifts you've been processing since Saturn's retrograde began. This is not a period of random developments. It is a period when the universe expects you to show maturity, commit to your calling, and build your career foundation brick by brick. During Saturn's retrograde, many Gemini individuals have quietly questioned their professional direction, reevaluated ambitions, and faced unavoidable truths about career structure, leadership roles, and their relationship with authority figures. Some may have faced delays, confusion, or limitations. Others may have withdrawn to reassess professional goals or develop skills behind the scenes. Now, as Saturn turns direct, external movement begins. But this movement demands discipline, clarity, and accountability. Saturn in the 10th does not give success lightly. It tests you until you prove you can carry the responsibility. Any shortcuts collapse now. Only ethical work and grounded effort stand. Career themes intensify. Whether you like it or not, life asks you to show up consistently. This period feels like stepping into the role of the adult, the professional, the authority, regardless of age. For some Geminis, this could mean promotions, leadership responsibilities, or increased visibility. For others, it may bring restructuring within the workplace, career transitions, or a sober realization that it is time to switch tracks. Saturn in the 10th often places you under the spotlight, not for fame alone, but for accountability. Bosses, employers, or public expectations may feel heavier, but this pressure builds your professional muscles. If you've been directionless, Saturn now compels you to define a career path. If you've been complacent, you will have to push past comfort and grow. If you've been working sincerely, recognition gradually starts forming, slow, steady, and lasting. Financially, Saturn's influence through the 8th house may bring focus to loans, shared assets, inheritance-related matters, taxes, insurance, or joint finances. The karmic principle here is responsibility and transparency. Joint ventures need clear boundaries. Financial discipline becomes essential. If there were irregularities or dependencies in shared finances, Saturn encourages you to stand on your own feet. Meanwhile, the long-term gains grows through persistent professional effort, not speculation or shortcuts. Think of this phase as sowing seeds in well-prepared soil. Consistent effort leads to rewards later. Saturn's influence on your 9th house adds another layer. Your belief system and worldview are evolving. Faith becomes grounded, not blind. Your respect for teachers deepens, but only for those who walk their talk. You may pursue serious study, spiritual systems, philosophy, or higher education during this period, not casually, but with commitment. Travel for work or learning may become significant, especially long-distance or international travel. Mentorship, guidance, and long-term learning paths can strongly influence your professional growth now. Saturn ensures that what you believe and what you do align closely. Saturn's aspects bring further insight into the work required. Saturn's third aspect to Taurus, your 12th house, demands extra effort toward inner healing, discipline, past life karmic clearing, and subconscious work. Some Geminis may feel called to spiritual retreat, meditation, charitable service, or quiet preparation. Sleep, mental rest, and emotional hygiene are essential. Without them, Saturn may express through exhaustion or burnout. Saturn's seventh aspect falls on Virgo, your 4th house, highlighting patience needed in home life, emotional foundations, and family responsibilities. Domestic changes, real estate decisions, or family obligations may require calm perseverance. This aspect also tests your emotional grounding. You cannot build external success if your emotional base is unstable. Saturn's 10th aspect lands on Sagittarius, your 7th house, emphasizing duty and responsibility in relationships and partnerships, both personal and professional. You may need to redefine boundaries, make mature decisions about commitment, and balance career ambitions with relationship obligations. A key period arrives April 11th to 30th, 2026, when Mercury, your ruling planet, enters Pisces and conjoins Saturn. This transit demands clarity of thinking and maturity in communication. Mercury in Pisces can feel foggy, intuitive, and imaginative, while Saturn demands structure. This period could feel mentally intense, mixed with responsibility, public communication demands, and decisions you must take seriously. Avoid rushing, overthinking, or emotional reactions. Instead, choose thoughtful planning, grounded communication, and long-term thinking. This window may also unlock creative intelligence, strategic insights, or spiritual learning that strengthens your career direction, especially if you stay realistic and focused. Jupiter's movement during this time provides emotional and intellectual support. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde in exalted Cancer, strengthening emotional security, resilience, and your financial base through family and personal resources. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter re-enters Gemini, activating your intellect, communication, curiosity, and self-renewal. You may feel curious, exploratory, ready to learn and reconnect with the world. When Jupiter turns direct on March 11, 2026, your mental clarity sharpens further, helping you articulate goals and understand your role in the world. Then, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter re-enters Cancer, casting its benefic 9th aspect onto Saturn in Pisces. This moment is important. Jupiter's grace supports Saturn's discipline, providing emotional nourishment, protective intuition, and the inner foundation to carry professional responsibility. The universe gives you both structure and protection, hard work and hope. This period is not about instant gratification. It is about earning authority, building credibility, and stepping into your mature self. As a Gemini, you thrive on movement, ideas, and communication. Saturn in your 10th teaches the beauty of sustained focus and depth. You evolve from experimenting to mastering. You stop scattering energy and learn the power of commitment. Expect a shift from questioning your purpose to actively living it. A phase of uncertainty now transforms into a disciplined climb. The world will not reward noise or speed now. It will reward consistency, responsibility, and honesty. Whether you feel pressure or opportunity depends on how willing you are to grow up in your relationship with your professional identity. Walk this chapter with the dignity Saturn demands. Trust your capacity to rise, not by being clever, but by being steady. This transit will carve you into someone the world respects, not only for what you accomplish, but for the character you build while accomplishing it. Saturn is not blocking you, it is elevating you, slowly and permanently, into a life aligned with your truest ambition and highest integrity. For Cancer, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Cancer individuals enter a defining period of spiritual maturity, belief system restructuring, and karmic alignment with life purpose. Saturn rules your 7th house of partnerships and agreements, and your 8th house of joint resources, emotional transformation, karmic debts, and deep intimacy. With Saturn moving forward in your 9th house of faith, higher learning, righteousness, destiny, long-distance travel, teachers, and philosophical truth, life pulls you toward growth that cannot be negotiated or postponed. This chapter asks you to evolve beyond emotional instincts and cultivate wisdom, perspective, discipline, and spiritual responsibility. During Saturn's retrograde, many Cancer individuals were navigating inner conflict around meaning. You may have questioned your beliefs, teachers, goals, marriage principles, or spiritual path. Some experienced disappointment with mentors, institutions, or people you trusted. Others felt a spiritual numbness, not lost, but paused, as if life was asking you to slow down and unlearn old conditioning. Now, as Saturn turns direct, clarity begins returning and the direction ahead becomes unmistakable. This is not a dramatic push, it is a steady recommitment to truth, purpose, and long-term evolution. Saturn in your 9th house encourages you to build a belief system based on experience rather than emotional comfort. Cancer is a sign guided by feeling, memory, and instinct. Pisces is an area of spiritual truth beyond ego or emotion. Saturn's direct motion bridges these worlds. You learn to rely not only on intuition but on grounded perspective. Faith begins to mature. Spirituality becomes practice, not imagination. Education becomes commitment, not hobby. You begin valuing teachers who guide with depth, not just warmth. Destiny feels less like a dream and more like a responsibility you must grow into. Partnerships continue to evolve under this influence, since Saturn rules your 7th and 8th houses. Relationship themes now intersect with purpose and belief systems. Bonds deepen where values align and weaken where emotional attachment lacks spiritual integrity. Many Cancers may move toward relationships that expand their worldview, support inner growth, and challenge stagnation. Marriage becomes a journey of shared principles and emotional honesty, not emotional dependency alone. In business partnerships, ethics, commitments, and long-term vision must align. Saturn supports agreements built with maturity and dissolves ones based on illusion or convenience. Emotional transparency is necessary and avoidance only delays the inevitable learning cycle. Financially, Saturn influences shared assets, taxes, insurance, family wealth, and joint commitments. You may need to organize financial agreements, clarify shared responsibilities, and create long-term financial protection. The focus is not on sudden gains but on structured security. Saturn asks you to examine inherited beliefs about money, power, and dependence. Through steady planning and honest communication, you lay foundations for stability that support your evolving path and family responsibilities. Saturn's 3rd aspect lands in Taurus, your 11th house, emphasizing effort and action toward long-term goals, friendships, networks, and social contribution. You are called to refine your social circle, choosing quality connections over emotional comfort or nostalgia. New alliances form through education, spiritual groups, or professional communities aligned with your growth. Dreams also mature. You may outgrow goals rooted in ego, adopting aspirations rooted in contribution, meaning, and purpose. Progress requires consistent outreach, disciplined networking, and perseverance in community-based projects. Saturn's 7th aspect targets Virgo, your 3rd house, highlighting patience and discipline in communication, learning, writing, skill building, short trips, and self-expression. You may feel you must work harder to express yourself clearly, establish boundaries, develop courage, or complete studies. This is a time to refine communication, calm tone, thoughtful words, structured learning, and consistent creativity. Saturn pushes you to overcome hesitation and cultivate clarity and confidence through practice, not impulsiveness. Saturn's 10th aspect falls on Sagittarius, your 6th house, strengthening duties around work, service, routine, health, and daily discipline. This is a period to take charge of your physical well-being, refine routines, and take responsibility for professional performance. Workload may increase, requiring patience and maturity. You learn to handle responsibilities not as burdens but as steps toward mastery. Spiritual growth now includes physical discipline, better habits, improved diet, consistent health care, and organization. Jupiter offers important support throughout this period. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde and exalted in Cancer, your 1st house. This blesses you with inner strength, emotional resilience, spiritual protection, and intuitive guidance. Even during challenging growth moments, a quiet internal wisdom steadies you. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter re-enters Gemini, your 12th house, guiding you inward, toward meditation, retreat, healing, and subconscious cleansing. Answers come through silence and introspection rather than action. When Jupiter turns direct on March 11, 2026, spiritual clarity returns. Then on June 2, 2026, Jupiter again enters Cancer and casts its auspicious ninth aspect onto Saturn. This is blessing over effort, reinforcing your ninth house lessons with emotional healing and intuitive strength. In this phase, grace meets discipline and spiritual rewards begin to bloom. Throughout this transit, subtle but powerful psychological shifts unfold. You begin shedding emotional definitions that once felt like identity. Your inner child learns from your wiser self. You stop seeking validation from familiar emotional safety and move toward validation through truth and alignment. Life invites you to live guided by vision, not fear, conviction, not nostalgia, faith, not mood. As you evolve internally, your external reality gradually reshapes to mirror it. This is a time when life encourages you to refine what you believe, how you learn, where you take guidance, and how you live your spiritual commitments. A grounded sense of direction begins forming. You align with life not by holding tight, but by understanding deeply. Love becomes more conscious. Ambition gains purpose. Faith becomes practiced wisdom. You begin recognizing yourself not only as a nurturer, but as a seeker, someone who protects others because they understand life at deeper levels, not simply because they feel it. By the end of this period, you are not the same person you were before. Your sensitivity gains backbone. Your intuition gains structure. You become less reactive and more centered. Saturn elevates you from emotional to soulful living, from instinctive to awakened. And when the universe sees you ready, it opens doors aligned with your true purpose. Doors that remain open because you have grown strong enough to walk through them. For Leo, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Leo individuals move into one of the deepest karmic chapters of their lives, a period where transformation, emotional evolution, and spiritual maturity take precedence over external display or ego-driven pursuits. Saturn rules your sixth house of daily work, health, service, conflicts, debts, and discipline, and your seventh house of relationships, partnerships, and one-to-one commitments. With Saturn resuming forward motion in your eighth house, the territory of interchange, karmic debts, emotional rebirth, intimacy, shared finances, psychological reform, mysteries, occult sciences, and life-changing events, life requires you to enter your depths, confront your shadows, and reshape yourself from the inside out. This is not a superficial stage. It is a karmic turning point. The months of Saturn's retrograde in Pisces may have already begun to surface suppressed fears, emotional wounds, intimacy issues, vulnerability patterns, or financial matters tied to others. Now, with Saturn moving forward, the energy shifts from observation to conscious choice and action. Leo individuals, naturally confident, outward-focused, expressive, and proud, now learn power not through dominance or charisma, but through surrender, depth, and truth. Saturn here strips anything artificial and demands honesty. Relationships take on a transformative tone. With Saturn ruling your seventh house, partnerships become karmically significant. This transit tests the strength and sincerity of bonds. Not through drama, but through emotional transparency, shared accountability, and maturity. Relationships that resist vulnerability or operate on ego struggle. Partnerships based on mutual growth deepen. This is a period where many Leo individuals may face truth in marriage or long-term relationships. Emotional intimacy requires courage now, the courage to confess fears, expectations, trauma, and emotional history. For singles, bonds formed during this phase may feel karmic, intense, emotionally awakening, and deeply transformative. Commitment now comes with emotional responsibility, not fantasy. The eighth house also governs shared finances and joint responsibilities. Matters involving inheritance, taxes, insurance, business partnerships, shared wealth, investments, or loans may demand strategic handling. Saturn insists on transparency and responsibility. Hidden expenses, financial delays, or obligations may require attention. It is a time to simplify, clarify, and safeguard finances. Some Leo individuals may restructure investments or shift priorities towards security and long-term planning. Saturn supports wealth building through depth, research-based investments, long-term financial discipline, legacy planning, or karmic financial healing. Impulsive spending or ego-driven financial risks are humbled. Emotionally and psychologically, this is a cleansing cycle. Old traumas may rise not to break you, but to clear space for a healthier identity. You may confront control issues, emotional protection mechanisms, trust wounds, abandonment fears, or patterns inherited from past generations. Saturn in the 8th turns you into your own psychologist, tracing the roots of your emotional reactions and learning to dissolve them with patience and self-awareness. Many Leo individuals find themselves drawn toward healing modalities, therapy, meditation, tantra, deep spiritual study, or esoteric sciences. The universe invites you into the hidden layers of existence, not for escape, but for awakening. Saturn's aspects guide where effort is required. Saturn's 3rd aspect goes to Taurus, your 10th house, pushing you to put extra effort into career, reputation, and long-term professional goals. This is not a time for shortcuts. Slow, steady, strategic labor brings long-term results. You are being asked to build a legacy, not a moment. Saturn's 7th aspect goes to Virgo, your 2nd house, where patience is required in family matters, finances, speech, and emotional grounding. Be mindful of how you speak. Saturn here asks for restraint, maturity, and stable emotional expression. Family responsibilities may feel heavy but necessary. Saturn's 10th aspect goes to Sagittarius, your 5th house, highlighting duties around children, creative projects, education, and self-expression. This is where you show maturity as a parent, as a creator, and as a guide. Creative talents require discipline now. Pleasure gives way to purpose. An important period arises from March 15th to April 14th, 2026, when your ruler, the Sun, conjuncts Saturn in Pisces. This is not an easy phase. The ego meets humility, and pride meets introspection. You may feel more introspective, quieter, or emotionally sensitive. Power becomes internal rather than external. This conjunction realigns your sense of identity with deeper truth, helping dissolve ego layers that no longer serve you and strengthening your emotional backbone. Jupiter plays a protective role through this journey. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, sitting in your 12th house, nurturing your spiritual strength and subconscious healing. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter enters Gemini, your 11th house, bringing support from networks, friends, mentors, and communities. On March 11, 2026, Jupiter turns direct, sharpening clarity and offering social and intellectual support. Finally, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter returns to Cancer, again blessing your inner world and casting its auspicious 9th aspect on Saturn in Pisces. This spiritual protection ensures that while you walk through deep inner waters, the universe keeps a guiding light above you. Healing, intuition, and divine timing support your transformation. Meanwhile, the Rahu-Ketu axis continues across Aquarius, 7th house, and Leo, 1st house, amplifying the theme of identity versus partnership. You are reinventing yourself. Old versions of Leo are fading. A wiser, more spiritually attuned version is emerging. Rahu in the partnership house highlights karmic encounters, unconventional alliances, and lessons through others. Ketu in Leo dissolves ego identities and personal pride that stood in the way of growth. Combined with Saturn's 8th house process, this becomes a profound cycle of ego purification, spiritual maturity, and soul-level rebirth. This transit is about power, but not the kind Leo individuals are used to. It is the power of inner strength, emotional honesty, psychological depth, and spiritual authenticity. You are learning to lead yourself through uncertainty, to trust transformation, and to let change refine you instead of frighten you. The universe is shaping you into someone who commands respect not by shouting, but by radiating depth, clarity, and wisdom. Move through this period with courage, patience, and spiritual openness. Honor your emotions without drowning in them. Let go of control when life asks you to trust. Build stronger foundations in relationships and finances. Invest in self-healing and spiritual discipline. For Virgo, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Virgo individuals enter one of the most defining chapters of personal responsibility, relationship maturity, and karmic restructuring. Saturn rules your 5th house of intelligence, education, romance, creativity, self-expression, children, and speculation, and your 6th house of work, routine, service, health, discipline, disputes, and problem-solving. With Saturn resuming forward motion in your 7th house, the arena of marriage, partnerships, business allies, contracts, public dealings, and open karmic lessons, life now asks you to approach relationships as a responsibility, not fantasy, as a partnership, not escape, and as a field of karmic work, not immediate gratification. For Virgo, naturally analytical, detail-oriented, sensitive to disorder, and committed to self-improvement, Saturn's direct motion in the 7th house is a maturity gateway. Relationships reflect back your self-work in areas requiring emotional evolution. The retrograde months likely brought reality checks, revealing where expectations did not align with reality, where one-sided effort exhausted you, or where emotional insecurities shaped relationship behavior. Now, Saturn begins to rebuild the structure of how you relate to others in personal, emotional, and professional bonds. This transit is less about losing love and more about learning what love requires: patience, boundaries, consistency, emotional responsibility, and acceptance of another's individuality. Since Saturn gains directional strength, Digbala, in the 7th house, its lessons here are powerful and cannot be bypassed. You are being shaped into a stronger partner and a wiser judge of people. Saturn dissolves superficial connections and strengthens meaningful ones. Love becomes practical, patient, and grounded, not theoretical or idealistic. If a relationship stands on solid values, shared commitment, and mutual respect, this transit deepens intimacy and loyalty. If the connection has weak emotional foundations, unrealistic expectations, or avoidance of responsibility, Saturn forces clarity and evolution. Breakdowns occur only where evolution is resisted. For singles, this period encourages seeking mature, dedicated partnerships. You may attract responsible, older, karmically connected, or spiritually aligned partners. The desire for stability replaces the thrill of romance. Saturn wants you to choose a partner who helps your soul grow, not just your emotions feel safe. Commitment energy is strong, but it arrives with accountability, not fantasy. In business partnerships and contracts, Saturn demands careful agreements, patience in collaborations, and honesty in commitments. Any imbalance in effort, ethics, or contribution becomes visible. Virgo's natural desire for precision must now combine with flexibility and trust. Saturn teaches that partnership is not control, it is cooperation, humility, and shared responsibility. Saturn's rulership of the 5th house also brings lessons around individuality, creativity, and personal desires and relationships. You learn to balance self-expression with partnership responsibilities. Creativity matures into craft, ideas turn into structured output, emotional impulses evolve into wisdom. For Virgo individuals with children, responsibilities may increase, teaching, guiding, nurturing, and supporting them through important growth phases. Saturn's rulership of the 6th house adds emphasis on service, duty, and perseverance in relationships. Daily routines, shared responsibilities, and problem-solving become important themes. Working through conflict constructively becomes essential. Health habits, emotional regulation, and routine discipline influence relationship success. Saturn reminds you that love thrives not only in grand moments, but in everyday responsibility and patience. Saturn's aspects further shape this journey. Saturn's 3rd aspect falls on Taurus, your 9th house, encouraging effort towards spiritual growth, education, faith systems, and life. Purpose. You may pursue higher studies, philosophical teachings, or spiritual discipline. Long-distance travel for learning or karmic reasons may occur. Faith becomes grounded in lived truth rather than imagination. Saturn's 7th aspect lands on Virgo itself, highlighting your self-growth and personal evolution. You may feel pressure to mature emotionally, strengthen self-worth, and break habits that restrict healthy relating. Self-criticism softens into self-awareness. Saturn pushes you to build emotional endurance, patience, and clarity about what you need in partnership, not what fear or insecurity asks for, but what wisdom requires. Saturn's 10th aspect targets Sagittarius, your 4th house, emphasizing duty toward home, family, emotional security, and property matters. Domestic responsibilities may increase. Some Virgo individuals may relocate, renovate homes, or take on family duties. Emotional maturity becomes necessary at home. Grounding your private life supports your public and relational growth. A key transit period arises April 11th to 30th, 2026, when Mercury, your ruling planet, enters Pisces, its debilitation sign, and conjoins Saturn. This period may feel mentally heavy or emotionally demanding. You may confront communication challenges, sensitive conversations, clarity issues, or emotional vulnerability in relationships. Yet, this conjunction also offers opportunities to refine your communication, speaking with responsibility, listening with humility, and choosing maturity over reaction. It strengthens emotional intelligence if you stay grounded. Jupiter offers support and balance through this period. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde and exalted in Cancer, your 11th house, blessing you with support from friends, networks, mentors, and hopes. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter re-enters Gemini, your 10th house, supporting career growth, leadership opportunities, and public recognition, though through steady effort rather than sudden expansion. When Jupiter turns direct on March 11, 2026, clarity and confidence return to your professional path. Then, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter re-enters Cancer and casts its 9th aspect on Saturn in Pisces, providing emotional nourishment, supportive alliances, and grace within relationship lessons. Jupiter softens Saturn's edges, allowing growth without emotional depletion. Through all of this, the internal work remains paramount. Virgo's growth is shifting from perfection to acceptance, from analysis to compassion, from control to trust. You are learning to love without anxiety, to build without fear, and to trust without micromanaging fate. Saturn is teaching you to create emotional boundaries without shutting down, to commit without sacrificing individuality, and to serve without losing dignity. By the end of this transit, you emerge with a more mature understanding of love, partnership, and emotional responsibility. You become stronger in conflict resolution, wiser in partner selection, calmer in emotional storms, and more capable of sustaining long-term bonds. Saturn in the 7th house teaches you that real companionship is not about perfection, it is about consistency, loyalty, patience, and shared soul work. Saturn brings maturity not to restrict you, but to protect you, so the love you build now is one that lasts, supports, and evolves with you. For Libra, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Libra individuals enter a period where discipline, health, routine, service, and practicality anchor their life path. Saturn rules your 4th house of home, emotional foundations, mother, inner stability, and property, and your 5th house of intelligence, creativity, romance, children, and skill development. As it resumes forward movement in your 6th house, the domain of everyday work, responsibilities, health, physical routines, disputes, competition, debts, and service to others, Saturn now demands maturity in how you manage your daily life, how you handle responsibilities, and how you navigate real-world challenges. For Libra, a sign naturally inclined toward balance, harmony, beauty, and diplomacy, Saturn's direct motion marks a shift toward grounded effort, structured self-improvement, and accountability in habits. During Saturn's retrograde, you may have felt pulled inward, reevaluating health patterns, work routines, service responsibilities, and emotional stability. Perhaps certain habits collapsed, health concerns resurfaced, or you felt emotionally overwhelmed by daily responsibilities. Now, Saturn moving direct brings clarity and structure, allowing you to rebuild routines with maturity and perseverance. This phase teaches that balance is not a feeling, it is a discipline. Peace does not happen by avoidance. It emerges when responsibilities are honored and systems are established. Saturn now becomes your coach, pushing you to create long-term wellness, professional consistency, and emotional strength. Work and career take a pragmatic turn. The 6th house emphasizes effort, mastery of skills, and meaningful contribution. Saturn's influence means progress comes through steady commitment, not immediate rewards. You may face increased workload or responsibilities, but this also opens pathways to competence and reliability. People notice you more for your work ethic, resilience, and practical intelligence than charm or diplomacy. Jobs in health, service, government institutions, legal fields, counseling, administration, healing professions, or skill-based industries benefit from steady dedication. If you've been planning to start independent work or serve others through skill-based services, this is an excellent time, but only if you commit to consistency and structure. Saturn builds sustainable success, not quick results. Emotionally, Saturn's direct motion stabilizes your inner world through discipline rather than external comfort. Since Saturn rules your 4th house, matters related to home, peace of mind, and emotional security require grounded attention. You may make practical changes at home, organizing space, resolving long-pending property matters, adjusting living arrangements, or supporting a parent. Home becomes a place of work or healing, not just comfort. Emotional maturity develops through responsibility rather than escape. As you tidy your inner and outer environment, mental clarity strengthens. With Saturn ruling your 5th house, creativity, romance, expression, and matters of children evolve through discipline. Creative pursuits flourish when you treat them as practice rather than inspiration alone. Romance matures. Relationships require real effort, responsibility, and emotional clarity. Casual bonds lose appeal. Real loyalty and emotional steadiness become priorities. If you're involved with children, raising them, supporting their education, or planning for their future, steady involvement and patience bring growth. Saturn ensures real progress in 5th house matters when you bring patience and commitment. Saturn's aspects guide where your effort must be directed. Saturn's 3rd aspect falls on Taurus, your 8th house, indicating effort towards psychological healing, shared finances, taxes, loans, inheritances, and deep emotional transformation. You cannot avoid financial matters or emotional truth now. Saturn demands depth, honesty, and accountability in joint finances and inner life. Saturn's 7th aspect falls on Virgo, your 12th house, where patience and surrender are required. This is a subtle but powerful influence. Spiritual cleansing, healing subconscious fears, closing karmic chapters, and letting go of emotional baggage require time and discipline. Meditation, therapy, silence, and rest become necessary for balance. Sleep patterns may need attention. Some Libra individuals may travel, work in solitude, or seek healing retreats. The 12th house aspect reminds you that true strength comes from inner restoration as much as from outer discipline. Saturn's 10th aspect targets Sagittarius, your 3rd house, highlighting responsibility in communication, learning, courage, and skill building. You may need to speak truth with maturity, handle paperwork or legal matters, develop a new skill, or face responsibilities related to siblings or travel. Saturn strengthens your communication style, making it thoughtful, grounded, and purposeful. You are not asked to speak more, but to speak with clarity and intention. Skills built now support long-term success. A significant energetic period arrives when your ruling planet Venus enters Pisces, its exaltation sign, from March 2 to 26, 2026, joining Saturn in your 6th house. This combination brings softness into discipline and grace into effort. Work becomes fulfilling, routines feel meaningful, and service becomes a source of inner satisfaction. Venus softens Saturn's strictness, helping you enjoy the process of self-improvement. This period may also bring support from helpful colleagues, healing through beauty or art, or harmony in professional collaborations. It is a month that blends duty with divine blessing, making discipline feel more natural and rewarding. Jupiter plays a protective and expansive role throughout this cycle. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde and exalted in Cancer, your 10th house, blessing your career foundation and guiding you toward meaningful public roles. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter moves into Gemini, your 9th house, encouraging study, spiritual exploration, and intellectual growth. On March 11, 2026, Jupiter turns direct, bringing clarity to your belief system and long-term vision. Finally, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter re-enters Cancer and casts its auspicious 9th aspect upon Saturn in Pisces, offering emotional support, professional blessing, and spiritual protection during your discipline-building phase. Where Saturn demands work, Jupiter grants hope, perspective, and opportunities aligned with your growth. Throughout this transit, Libra evolves. Harmony now comes from honoring duties, building healthy routines, and staying true to commitments. You find balance not by avoiding difficulty, but by mastering it. Health routines become sacred, daily discipline becomes a spiritual practice, and confidence grows through personal responsibility. You learn that beauty is not only aesthetic, it is reflected in order, balance, discipline, and integrity. By the end of this cycle, you emerge stronger, healthier, more productive, and emotionally grounded. Your relationships mature as you learn to support others without losing yourself. Your work gains respect. Your body strengthens through committed care. Your mind clears as routines find rhythm. Saturn in the 6th house is not here to limit you, it is here to refine you, purify your habits, and help you build a life where peace is earned, stability is real, and balance stands on a foundation you created with your own steady hands. For Scorpio, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Scorpio individuals step into a powerful period of intellectual maturation, creative responsibility, emotional refinement, and karmic evolution around children, romance, learning, and self-expression. Saturn rules your third house of effort, skills, communication, courage, siblings, and short journeys, and your fourth house of emotional foundations, home, real estate, mother, and inner peace. With Saturn moving forward in your fifth house, the arena of intelligence, education, romance, creative inspiration, speculative activities, and children, life now shifts toward disciplined growth rather than instinctive or emotionally intense reactions. For Scorpio, a sign associated with depth, transformation, emotional intensity, and inner strength, this transit becomes a journey of channeling your emotional power into structured creation rather than emotional consumption. During Saturn's retrograde phase in Pisces, many Scorpio individuals were already encountering themes of emotional introspection around children, creative purpose, and romantic expectations. Some faced doubts regarding talent or direction, others questioned relationships or parenting roles, and many felt a pause in personal joy or spontaneity. Saturn may have slowed creative projects, brought emotional tests in love, or highlighted responsibilities with children. Now, with Saturn turning direct, you move out of a phase of internal questioning and into one of grounded action and responsible commitment toward what, and who, you care for. The fifth house represents the heart space, and Saturn here teaches that true joy is cultivated, not stumbled upon. Creativity matures into disciplined artistry. Romance evolves from emotional intensity into emotional stability. Parenting becomes a path of patient guidance, not instinctive protection alone. Saturn helps you refine how you express love, talent, passion, and intellect. This is not a time for impulsive decisions, dramatic emotional leaps, or escapism. It is a time for sustained focus on long-term creative and emotional fulfillment. You learn to invest in what matters rather than chase emotional highs. Scorpio's shadow tendencies, secrecy, emotional extremes, intensity, and fear of vulnerability, soften and stabilize under this Saturn cycle. You are learning to express instead of suppress, to build instead of defend, to guide instead of control. Passion takes form through commitment. Love matures through patience. Creative gifts evolve through practice, discipline, and skill development. You are being shaped into someone whose emotional power is not reactive but purposeful, not hidden, but expressed with maturity. Saturn's rulership over your third house highlights communication, learning, and skill refinement during this period. You may feel a strong urge to study, teach, write, present, or master a subject. Saturn demands consistency, daily practice, disciplined learning, structured creativity. You may also become more protective or responsible towards siblings or need to support a sibling through responsibility or emotional guidance. As you sharpen your mental tools, you become more deliberate in your speech, precise with your thoughts, and strategic with your goals. Saturn's rulership over your fourth house also brings emotional grounding and responsibility at home. Matters involving property, living arrangements, family duties, or caring for a parent may require attention. Emotional stability becomes essential. Saturn teaches that joy grows when inner foundations are steady. This is a time to strengthen your inner world, organize your domestic life, and release emotional patterns that hinder peace. Saturn in Pisces encourages emotional clarity through spiritual practice, meditation, and intuitive discipline. Saturn's aspects deepen this narrative. Saturn's third aspect falls on Taurus, your seventh house, emphasizing effort in relationships, marriage, business partnerships, and public reputation. You must work consciously to build trust, honesty, and emotional maturity in relationships. Partnerships evolve through communication and patience rather than emotional expectations. Saturn's seventh aspect targets Virgo, your 11th house, teaching patience in friendships, social circles, long-term goals, and income. Progress in gains or recognition may feel slow, but Saturn brings stability and real alliances over time. You refine your goals and align with communities that support your authentic growth, not surface-level validation. Saturn's 10th aspect activates Sagittarius, your second house, emphasizing duties around finances, family responsibilities, speech, and values. Discipline in managing money, savings, and resources becomes essential. This is also a time to speak with purpose and restraint. Your words carry weight. A major astrological highlight for Scorpio arrives when Mars, your ruling planet, conjuncts Saturn in Pisces from April 2nd to May 11th, 2026. This is a rare karmic period. Mars gives ambition, Saturn gives structure. Together, they forge strength and discipline but demand patience and emotional containment. This period can feel intense emotionally and creatively. You may feel driven to pursue a dream or confront a block. Use this time to focus your energy rather than scatter it. Avoid impulsivity in romance and investments. The universe demands precision, not force. When Mars aligns with Saturn in your 5th house, your courage and creativity become refined weapons, not blunt emotions. Jupiter brings grace throughout this chapter. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde and exalted in Cancer in your 9th house, blessing your belief system, higher learning, and destiny path. Spiritual teachers, mentors, or philosophical expansion guide you even when the path feels serious. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter moves into Gemini, activating shared finances, healing, and deep transformation. On March 11, 2026, it turns direct, enhancing intuition and access to truth. Then, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter returns to Cancer and casts its 9th aspect onto Saturn, spiritually uplifting your creative and emotional evolution. Jupiter nourishes hope while Saturn demands effort. Together they bring wisdom through discipline, faith through work, and blessings through responsibility. By the end of this period, Scorpio becomes emotionally refined, spiritually grounded, creatively mature, and mentally strong. Where once intensity ruled, now wisdom leads. Where once passion overwhelmed, now presence guides. You learn that true power is not control, it is clarity. Romance becomes sincere. Creativity becomes disciplined. Family responsibilities deepen your emotional maturity. Your inner world evolves from raw emotional depth to profound emotional intelligence. You are being prepared not just to feel deeply, but to create meaningfully, to turn emotion into art, inner strength into guidance, and passion into purposeful action. Saturn in the 5th house shapes you into a wiser lover, a more purposeful creator, a steady parent or mentor, and a soul who understands joy not as sudden flame but as a sacred fire you tend daily with devotion. Saturn is not restricting your heart, it is maturing it so it can hold more truth, more purpose, more power, and more authentic happiness. For Sagittarius, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Sagittarius individuals enter a deeply transformative cycle focused on home life, emotional foundations, inner security, responsibilities toward family, and the restructuring of personal stability. Saturn rules your 2nd house of family, values, finances, speech, and food habits, and your 3rd house of effort, communication, skills, courage, siblings, and self-initiative. Now moving forward in your 4th house, the domain of home, mother, property, emotional grounding, comfort, inner peace, and psychological roots, Saturn calls you inward. External expansion slows so inner consolidation can begin. For Sagittarius, a sign built for exploration, big dreams, movement, and philosophical growth, this transit teaches the value of emotional maturity, grounding, and building a base that supports the journey ahead. Throughout Saturn's retrograde period, you may have experienced emotional heaviness or a desire to withdraw, restructure home life, or deal with unresolved family dynamics. Certain responsibilities at home may have intensified or emotional stability may have felt tested. Saturn retrograde often exposes cracks in emotional foundations, whether in living arrangements, family systems, or inner security. Now, as Saturn turns direct, clarity returns and you begin to take conscious steps towards strengthening your internal and external base. This is a time to build a life you can rest inside, not just run away from or temporarily recharge in. Saturn in the 4th house emphasizes emotional adulthood. There is a shift from seeking freedom outward to building safety inward. You begin to understand that true freedom is not escape, it is inner stability. You learn to create your own emotional grounding rather than relying solely on movement, adventure, or external inspiration. This period encourages you to build routines, anchor your priorities, and nurture emotional resilience. Home and property matters become significant. You may invest in real estate, relocate, renovate, or take on family responsibilities. Some Sagittarians may support parents, especially the mother, or handle matters involving ancestral property or domestic stability. Saturn does not deny peace, it simply requires you to earn it through responsibility, patience, and structured effort. Comfort grows through discipline, not indulgence. If living arrangements feel limiting or demanding, know that these pressures are shaping you into someone capable of carrying personal and emotional responsibilities gracefully. Financially, Saturn's rulership over your 2nd house connects money matters to emotional stability and family duties. You may take a more conservative approach to spending, savings, and wealth building. Priorities shift from adventure-driven spending toward long-term security. Saturn encourages disciplined financial planning, structured investments, realistic budgeting, and steady asset building. Family responsibilities, whether financial or emotional, may require attention. Through this period, you build wealth not just materially, but emotionally and spiritually, the wealth of stability, grounded values, and inner peace. Saturn's rulership over the third house influences communication, skill development, courage, and initiative. You may feel called to deepen a skill set that supports long-term stability. Writing, teaching, communication work, or structured education may become important. You learn to speak with maturity, act with discipline, and pursue goals with consistent effort rather than impulsiveness. Your relationships with siblings or close relatives may require patience and responsibility. Saturn teaches you to build courage through grounded effort, not bravado or philosophical optimism alone. Saturn's aspects guide where karmic work unfolds. Saturn's third aspect falls on Taurus, your sixth house, requiring extra effort in work, health, routines, service, and handling conflicts. You may face increased responsibilities at work, but this also builds competence and credibility. Health routines demand discipline, sleep, digestion, exercise, and emotional processing become priority. Service-oriented efforts bring long-term benefit. Saturn's seventh aspect goes to Virgo, your 10th house, highlighting patience in career progress and public achievements. Success unfolds slowly and steadily. Saturn refines your ambition, ego-driven goals dissolve, replaced by purpose-driven work. You may take on leadership responsibilities, fulfill duties to employers or clients, or build a public identity rooted in integrity, not image. Recognition comes later, but it comes with respect and permanence. Saturn's 10th aspect lands on Sagittarius itself, strengthening the duty you owe to your own growth. Saturn asks you to take responsibility for your life direction. No shortcuts, no escape through idealism or philosophical bypassing. This is a moment to commit to emotional maturity, grounded growth, and personal accountability. You begin to embody the wisdom you preach, turning belief into lived discipline. Throughout this journey, Jupiter provides grace. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde and exalted in Cancer in your 8th house, offering emotional healing and karmic protection. Inner transformation, therapy, psychological cleansing, and spiritual depth flourish. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter moves to Gemini, your 7th house, bringing support through relationships, teachers, collaborators, or destiny partners. When Jupiter turns direct on March 11, 2026, clarity around partnership and commitment strengthens. Then, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter re-enters Cancer and casts its 9th aspect on Saturn, nourishing your emotional foundations, blessing family matters, and helping you build a home, inner and outer, that truly supports your soul. This period can also increase emotional sensitivity. Past memories surface for release. You may reflect on childhood experiences, inherited emotional patterns, and family conditioning. Saturn invites you to heal generational cycles, not by rejecting your roots, but by building healthier ones for yourself. The inner child matures, not by losing innocence, but by gaining resilience and understanding. You learn to soothe yourself, not escape. You learn to build peace, not chase distraction. Romantically and creatively, grounding becomes essential. You seek emotional safety rather than excitement. Connections deepen or dissolve depending on emotional maturity and shared values. Parenting responsibilities or questions of family planning may arise. You practice nurturing without losing independence, and love becomes quieter but deeper. As this transit progresses, Sagittarius transforms from a seeker always looking outward into a wise soul who understands that truth also lives within. Your power becomes calm, your optimism grounded, your vision steady. Saturn in the 4th house teaches that a strong foundation does not limit you, it frees you. Once your roots are deep, your branches can rise even higher. By the end of this transit, you emerge with greater emotional strength, a stable foundation, a matured sense of duty, and the inner peace of someone who has learned that home is not merely a place, it is a state of consciousness. Saturn has not confined you, it has prepared you to rise higher than ever, grounded in truth and rooted in emotional strength. For Capricorn, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Capricorn individuals move into a highly formative phase of mental discipline, communication mastery, self-effort, and personal empowerment. Saturn is your ruling planet, and in your chart it governs the first house of identity, self-discipline, physical vitality, and life direction, and the second house of speech, values, family, finances, and food habits. With Saturn resuming direct motion in your third house, the area of courage, communication, skills, marketing, writing, media, networking, siblings, short travels, effort, and initiative, life calls you to build your voice, sharpen your skills, and take personal initiative toward the life you seek. Saturn's retrograde phase in Pisces likely created moments of internal doubt around communication, personal influence, and skill development. You may have felt mentally withdrawn, reviewing your capacity to express yourself or your confidence in new directions. Plans may have moved slower than expected, especially in projects requiring writing, speaking, networking, content creation, or learning. Relationships with siblings or neighbors may have needed patience or emotional work. Now, as Saturn turns direct, inner reflection transforms into constructive movement. You begin applying what you learned about your communication patterns, emotional responses, and self-motivation. The universe shifts you from introspection to disciplined action. The third house is a house of personal power, not power given by titles or status, but power earned through skill, courage, and perseverance. Saturn here trains you to become stronger mentally, sharper intellectually, and more effective in your efforts. For Capricorn, a sign naturally responsible, serious, and disciplined, this transit strengthens your ability to influence through intellect, strategy, and emotional maturity. You are learning that lasting success comes not only from authority but from communication excellence, adaptability, and intellectual strength. This period supports study, writing, teaching, public speaking, digital presence, business communication, and learning new systems or tools. You may take up a course, refine your skills, publish work, or share knowledge in structured ways. Saturn says, do it consistently, do it thoughtfully, and do it with depth. Results follow long-term commitment. Careers involving media, law, consulting, technology, business development, marketing, or sales may demand intense learning and methodical planning. Saturn encourages building skills that elevate your independence and ability to act strategically in life. Because Saturn rules your second house as well, finances connect strongly with your communication and effort now. Your speech becomes powerful but must be used responsibly. Clarity, truth, and restraint matter. You may develop a more structured financial plan, reduce waste, or build wealth through intellectual or communication-based work. The transit encourages responsible investment and long-term savings rather than impulsive spending. As Saturn moves forward, relationships with siblings or extended family may evolve through maturity and boundaries. You may support them or learn to hold emotional distance where necessary. Emotional reactions turn into measured responses. You communicate with purpose, not impulse. At a deeper level, Saturn in Pisces purifies the emotional undercurrent behind your thoughts. You learn to align mental discipline with emotional clarity, turning intuition into strategy. Fear transforms into courage through practice. Hesitation transforms into movement through daily effort. The voice inside your mind matures. Less doubt, more direction. Less reactivity, more observation. Less hesitation, more confidence earned through effort. Saturn's aspects during this period strengthen foundational work in key areas. Saturn's third aspect falls on Taurus, your fifth house, requiring disciplined effort in creativity, children, studies, romance, and self-expression. Creative projects require perseverance. Romantic life matures. Emotional highs give way to loyalty, steady presence, and realistic expectations. Parents may take on responsibilities for children's education and development. Those studying for competitive exams or learning high-skill subjects may feel pressure, but effort produces mastery. Saturn's seventh aspect targets Virgo, your ninth house, where patience in higher study, travel planning, spiritual discipline, and philosophical clarity is essential. You may refine your worldview, commit to spiritual habits, or work patiently to complete academic goals. Faith becomes structured, not idealistic. Wisdom comes through practice. Long-distance travel may require patience or planning. Saturn's 10th aspect activates Sagittarius, your 12th house, highlighting duties involving spiritual practice, withdrawal, introspection, rest, and charitable service. You learn to take responsibility for your inner world, heal subconscious fears, and create quiet time for reflection. Sleep routines, meditation practices, and psychological healing require discipline. Foreign connections or spiritual retreats may arise with purpose. Throughout this period, Jupiter plays a supporting role. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde and exalted in Cancer in your 7th house, bringing grace and wisdom in partnerships. Relationships and collaborations offer emotional strength, guidance, and karmic support, even when effort is needed. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter moves into Gemini, your 6th house, helping you improve health routines, work efficiency, and problem-solving power. It encourages service-oriented growth and helps you succeed in competitive environments. On March 11, 2026, Jupiter turns direct, improving clarity around work and health. Then, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter re-enters Cancer and once again casts its expansive 9th aspect onto Saturn, offering emotional support, spiritual grounding, partnerships that help you grow, and divine protection as you pursue disciplined self-development. For Capricorn, this Saturn transit becomes a training ground to strengthen your inner warrior, not through aggression, but through strategy, discipline, voice, and mental stability. Your self-image strengthens through effort. You build courage through consistent action rather than speed or risk. You learn to trust your voice because it comes from earned wisdom, not ego or emotion. Saturn helps you shed hesitation, fear, and self-doubt. You reinvent how you communicate, how you act, how you influence, and how you learn. By the end of this transit, you emerge more confident, skilled, resilient, and mentally powerful. You become someone who does not wait for opportunity. You prepare for it and create it. Your voice gains authority not through force, but through clarity and mastery. You become someone whose words carry weight because they come from discipline, experience, and truth. Saturn in the 3rd house shapes you into a strategist, someone who moves with intention, builds with patience, and leads with a quiet, formidable strength. Saturn is not limiting you, it is sharpening you, preparing you to speak, act, and rise with dignity, intelligence, and mastery. For Aquarius, when Saturn turns direct in Pisces on November 28, 2025, Aquarius individuals enter a cycle that reshapes their relationship with security, values, finances, speech, family responsibilities, emotional grounding, and self-worth. Saturn is your ruling planet, and in your chart it governs the 12th house of subconscious patterns, losses, solitude, spiritual surrender, foreign lands, and karmic release, and the 1st house of identity, personal direction, discipline, and life purpose. With Saturn resuming direct motion in your 2nd house, the area of wealth, savings, family duties, food habits, emotional rootedness, speech, and self-value, the universe begins anchoring your growth into tangible forms. The focus shifts from internal purging and redefining who you are, which has been unfolding since Saturn entered Aquarius in 2023, to stabilizing material foundations and grounding your identity in real-world structures. During Saturn's retrograde, many Aquarians felt introspective about finances, emotional worth, family dynamics, and long-term stability. Hidden fears around security, belonging, and personal value may have surfaced. Financial discipline, savings, or resource management may have demanded attention. You may have questioned your relationship with material security, whether you hold it loosely, fear losing it, or avoid depending on it. The retrograde likely brought lessons in simplicity, maturity, and reevaluating financial habits or inherited beliefs about money and worth. Now, as Saturn turns direct, clarity and forward movement return. You begin building a life you can trust, one not rooted in ideology or detachment alone, but in stability and steady growth. The 2nd house is not only about money, it is about what you need to feel safe. Saturn here teaches you to treat resources with respect, develop long-term wealth consciousness, and build habits that honor your future self. For Aquarius, a sign known for innovation, future thinking, and independence, this transit reminds you that visionary ideas require grounded foundations. Idealism strengthens when supported by practical systems. Detached intellect transforms into tangible manifestation through patience and sustained effort. Money becomes sacred energy when aligned with purpose, not fear or rebellion. Financial discipline becomes central. Saturn encourages budgeting, saving, building assets, addressing debts, and investing wisely. Impulsive spending or emotional avoidance around finances fades. You take leadership in constructing financial security. This period may also bring responsibility toward family members, shared resources, or ancestral duties. You may make conscious decisions around property, inheritance, family wealth, or secure assets for future peace of mind. Financial independence becomes a priority, not as rebellion but as self-respect. Saturn ruling your 12th house also weaves in karmic themes, learning to balance material responsibility with spiritual detachment. Some Aquarians may feel pulled between simplicity and accumulation, between spiritual calling and worldly duty. Saturn guides you to build a life where both can coexist: grounded spirituality, responsible freedom, mindful independence. You learn to release fears of scarcity and embrace disciplined abundance. You do not hoard out of insecurity nor ignore finances out of idealism. You build wisely and intentionally. Saturn ruling your first house shapes your identity during this period. Self-worth grows through integrity, consistent effort, and self-respecting behavior. You become more self-aware about how you communicate value, through work, speech, and daily behavior. Your diet, self-care rhythms, and emotional grounding evolve. Saturn teaches you to honor your body, nourish yourself wisely, and build routines that support longevity. The voice you carry becomes weightier and wiser, grounded in lived experience and clarity. Saturn's aspects refine key areas of life. Saturn's third aspect falls on Taurus, your 4th house, requiring extra effort in home, family relationships, emotional healing, and securing a stable living environment. You may invest in property, support parents, or restructure domestic life. Emotional maturity deepens. Peace becomes something you build through behavior, not seek externally. Saturn's 7th aspect targets Virgo, your 8th house, highlighting patience and shared resources, emotional vulnerability, intimacy, joint finances, and inner transformation. Trust becomes earned and mutual. You learn to handle shared resources responsibly and heal deeper layers of fear and attachment. Intimacy grows through transparency, not emotional armor. Saturn here matures psychological strength and clears karmic emotional patterns patiently. Saturn's 10th aspect influences Sagittarius, your 11th house, activating duties toward your goals, social networks, friendships, and public aspirations. You may redefine your long-term ambitions, separating realistic goals from distractions. Social interactions mature. You surround yourself with those who share integrity and long-term purpose. Saturn asks you to serve your community, but with discernment and accountability. Jupiter plays an enormous balancing role during this period. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde and exalted in Cancer in your 6th house, healing health, work routines, service, and discipline. Emotional strength returns through simplicity and daily alignment. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter enters Gemini, your 5th house, opening creative, romantic, and educational growth. It encourages learning, enjoyment through skill, and a return of inspiration, balanced by Saturn's grounding. On March 11, 2026, Jupiter turns direct, bringing clarity in creative direction and emotional expression. Then, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter re-enters Cancer and casts its powerful 9th aspect onto Saturn in Pisces, blessing your financial efforts, empowering emotional maturity, and supporting family stability. This combination blends discipline with grace and effort with protection. The Rahu-Ketu axis adds karmic depth. With Rahu in Aquarius and Ketu in Leo, you are reinventing identity and cleansing relationship patterns. Old ego forms dissolve. You are building a truer version of yourself, independent but emotionally real, innovative but grounded, intellectual but embodied. This is not a time to escape into future fantasies or isolate emotionally. It is a time to anchor who you are becoming into real structures and responsible choices. Speech and communication undergo refinement. Words gain weight, silence gains power. You learn to speak truth with grace and authority. Your emotional vocabulary expands. Your sense of value and self-worth becomes internal rather than driven by external validation. Food habits and gut health also evolve. Saturn pushes for discipline and nourishment, rejecting emotional eating or neglecting physical needs. By the end of this transit, you emerge financially wiser, emotionally deeper, and personally grounded. Your self-worth no longer drifts with circumstances. It roots in discipline, wisdom, and clarity of values. Family foundations strengthen through responsibility and maturity. Financial structures support your aspirations rather than restrict them. You learn that true freedom arrives not by rejecting responsibility, but by mastering it. Saturn is not limiting you. It is preparing you to hold greater personal power, emotional wisdom, and material stability. For Pisces, when Saturn turns direct on November 28, 2025, Pisces individuals enter one of the most defining and karmically formative periods of their lives. Saturn rules your 11th house of gains, networks, recognition, social circles, long-term goals, and fulfillment, and your 12th house of isolation, surrender, spiritual dissolution, subconscious patterns, healing, expenses, foreign lands, and moksha. With Saturn resuming forward motion in your first house, the seat of self-identity, body, direction, personality, health, and personal responsibility, this period demands serious inner work, maturity in choices, and a realistic rebuilding of who you are and who you are becoming. Unlike many other signs, Saturn in the first house for Pisces comes with a paradox. Saturn here loses directional strength, digbala, meaning its lessons are deeply internal, subtle, and often psychological rather than purely external. Yet, Saturn is active, intensely so, because it is reshaping your identity and life path. This is a time where illusions dissolve and reality steps in. Your self-image, personal habits, confidence, physical vitality, emotional responses, and long-term purpose are all undergoing restructuring. Saturn here is not punishing, it is sculpting. It strips away roles, masks, fantasies, and emotional crutches so a more grounded, responsible, spiritually aligned version of you can emerge. Pisces is naturally intuitive, emotional, sensitive, artistic, spiritually attuned, and imaginative. When Saturn turns direct in your sign, your dreams must meet structure and your spirituality must meet responsibility. Romanticism transforms into realism. Inspiration becomes disciplined effort. This is a time when you move from wishing to working, from floating to anchoring, from dissolving to constructing. Life now requires clarity, discipline, boundaries, self-accountability, and patience with your own evolution. Paths once pursued emotionally will now be measured through practicality and karmic necessity. During Saturn's retrograde period, you may have already felt this inward pressure, a sense of internal questioning, exhaustion, or reevaluation of your identity and life direction. Old roles may have felt heavy, relationships and friendships may have shifted, and solitude may have felt necessary. You might have confronted fears, insecurities, health concerns, or emotional vulnerabilities. Now, Saturn turns those reflections into a structured path forward. You slowly begin rebuilding, not in haste but in truth. It is a rebirth through discipline, not drama. Self-discipline becomes central. Your physical health, diet, routines, personal habits, and emotional regulation demand attention. Saturn forces you to take responsibility for your body and lifestyle. You may adopt healthier routines, strengthen your spine, literally and metaphorically, and cultivate emotional endurance. You learn to say no to draining people, to escapism, to habits that harm your peace. Saturn requires you to define who you are, not by fantasy, but by behavior and effort. Relationships undergo transformation. With Saturn ruling your 11th and 12th houses, social circles shift, friendships evolve, and karmic ties release. You may distance yourself from groups or friendships that no longer align with your maturity. You may lose interest in superficial validation or public approval. Solitude becomes sacred, not lonely. Where old attachments dissolve, spiritual support deepens. Saturn prepares you to build a new social identity, grounded in real value, not emotional dependency. Partnerships also call for honesty, stability, and emotional maturity. Supportive relationships deepen, weak ones naturally fade. Career goals and ambitions refine with time. You begin to align your profession with authenticity, not idealism alone. Saturn encourages long-term strategy, realistic planning, skill building, and sustainable effort. It may bring a temporary slowdown in expansion so you can rebuild with stronger foundations. Past ambitions that were ego-driven or emotionally fueled may shift toward meaningful, purposeful pursuits. Recognition and gains come, but slowly, steadily, and deservedly. You are preparing for long-term success, not temporary applause. Saturn's aspects highlight where effort, patience, and responsibility unfold. Saturn's third aspect falls on Taurus, your third house, requiring extra effort in communication, skill building, courage, travel planning, and relationship with siblings. You must practice expressing boundaries, speaking with clarity, and building skills methodically. Saturn asks you to strengthen your voice and commit to your learning journey. Saturn's seventh aspect targets Virgo, your seventh house, calling for patience in partnerships, marriage, business alliances, and public dealings. Relationship karmas mature here. Saturn teaches you to build bonds on responsibility and truth, not fantasy or emotional escape. Relationships require consistent effort, mature communication, and mutual accountability. Saturn's 10th aspect reaches Sagittarius, your 10th house, demanding career responsibility, real-world performance, duty fulfillment, and long-term planning. You may take on leadership duty or restructure career direction. Saturn guides you to work with integrity and perseverance. Shortcuts collapse here. Steady effort brings results. Jupiter provides emotional nourishment and divine support through this restructuring. When Saturn turns direct, Jupiter is retrograde and exalted in Cancer in your 5th house, helping you protect your creativity, romantic intelligence, intuition, and inner joy. You may revisit passions, heal romantic wounds, or reconnect with inspiration in a grounded way. On December 5, 2025, Jupiter moves into Gemini, your 4th house, bringing healing to family life and emotional foundations. On March 11, 2026, Jupiter turns direct, strengthening emotional stability and inner nurturing. Then, on June 2, 2026, Jupiter returns to Cancer and casts its 9th aspect on Saturn, offering spiritual reinforcement, creative blessings, healing inner child wounds, and divine support as you build your new self. Through this transit, your spirituality evolves. You no longer rely on faith as escape, but as discipline. Meditation deepens. Self-awareness sharpens. You learn to stay grounded while being intuitive, to be emotionally open while maintaining boundaries, to trust the universe while taking responsibility. Saturn teaches you that spiritual life requires structure, devotion, repetition, humility, and discipline. By the end of this transit, Pisces emerges strong, wise, self-defined, and spiritually mature. A new identity is forged, one that knows its worth, honors its emotions without drowning in them, dreams responsibly, and builds quietly and steadily. You become someone who moves through the world with depth, grace, and strength, not by disappearing into the ocean of feelings, but by learning to swim with discipline and direction. Saturn in your 1st house does not restrict you, it refines you. It transforms sensitivity into resilience, imagination into creation, compassion into boundaries, and dreams into long-term reality. You become a soul who can hold both spirit and structure, both intuition and responsibility. As we conclude this episode, please keep in mind that these insights are based on the Sidereal Zodiac system used in Vedic Astrology, which differs from the tropical system by approximately 24 degrees. These are general predictions. The real impact depends on your dasha cycles and your individual birth chart. For a personalized analysis or consultation, feel free to reach out. If you found this video valuable, please like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And now, you can also hype this video to boost it within the community. Your support helps this knowledge reach more people who may benefit. Thank you for watching. Stay aware, keep learning, and keep shining bright.